Hey guys, tonight we ride into the wind-swept lands of ancient China. No charger, no sword, just you, a thin satchel, and a crumpled piece of paper sealed with wax and urgency. You're not a warrior or a prince. You're something far more sleep-deprived, a Tang Dynasty courier. The sky above you glows with that milky haze of desert dusk. Sand grains cling to your sleeves. Ahead stretches a narrow trail carved by decades of hooves, winding past crooked watchtowers and silent tea stalls. Somewhere beyond those hills lies the next relay station. The wind whistles like a flute. You probably won't survive this job. Just saying. Bandits like paper too, and the Mongols are beginning to sniff around the edges of the empire. Though no one says that out loud yet. You've been told your message is important. You've also been told that if it doesn't reach the capital, your entire village might be in trouble. No pressure. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is somewhere around 750 CE, and the Tang Dynasty is humming along in its golden age. China stretches from the Pacific coast deep into Central Asia, and you, lucky you, are part of a massive network of information called the Yichuan system, basically the Tang's express courier service. Think FedEx, but with more sandals and significantly fewer ergonomic backpacks. You've been riding since dawn. Each post station is spaced just far enough that your horse can run full speed before needing a rest, usually about 30 to 40 kilometers apart. At each one, you swap mounts like clockwork. A fresh horse, a brief drink of water, maybe some hot broth if the station master likes you. And then you're off again. Fast communication in a time before electricity relied on one thing: exhausted humans doing their best not to collapse in the middle of the desert. At first glance, the life of a Tang courier might not look thrilling. You deliver grain reports, tax receipts, diplomatic letters, but every now and then you carry something that changes history. Orders to mobilize troops, messages to governors about regional rebellions, emergency dispatches, warning of disease outbreaks, or worse, Mongol scouts. Your message tonight is sealed in vermilion wax, marked urgent. You try not to think about what that means. By now, your hands are numb from gripping the reins. You remember your trainer's advice: never let your knees lock. That's how you fall off. You adjust slightly, ignoring the cramp in your left thigh. The road curves, and in the fading light, you spot a wooden post station up ahead. Its flag, red with a golden dragon, flaps lazily in the wind. Inside, the clerk barely looks up. He snatches your dispatch, hands you a warm rice ball, and gestures toward the next horse already saddled. It's like this across the empire. More than 1,600 such stations stretched over thousands of miles. This is what historians now call one of the earliest examples of a scheduled relay system, and it's astonishingly efficient. Historians still argue whether it was a top-down invention from the emperor himself or a grassroots evolution from older Zhou and Han practices. But the sheer scale of it? Mind-blowing. The Tang's roads spanned everything from humid river valleys to the errant stretches of the Silk Road. And wherever there were people, There was paper on the move. The government used a standardized system of wooden tallies, sort of a passport stamp meets voucher, to authorize each courier and prevent fakes. You kept yours in a pocket under your robe, wrapped tightly in cloth. Lose it, and you're in serious trouble. Think demotion to pighead. The smell in the station is a mix of horse sweat, boiled millet, and ink. Scrolls line the shelves, carefully bundled and labeled. Some are double-sealed, coded messages that only specific officials can open. You once peeked inside one during a lightning storm when the clerk left the room. All you saw were strange ideograms and a sketch of what looked like a turtle with wings. You still have no idea what that was about. You don't linger. The next stretch of road is bandit country, and it's best crossed before full dark. Your new horse is a skittish gray mare with a twitchy tail and a deep resentment toward couriers, apparently. You coax her forward, teeth chattering as the evening chill sets in. Somewhere behind you, an owl hoots. Somewhere ahead, the Empire waits. It's strange, in a way, being so anonymous yet so important. No one remembers the names of Tang postmen. We know the generals, the poets, the emperors with flowing robes and nine-ringed swords. But the ones who delivered their words, who risked their lives to move ink across mountains and deserts, they vanish into the footnotes, sometimes literally. Some scrolls still bear smudges where rain or blood or fingerprints once marred the message. A few archaeologists even believe some of these couriers added little doodles in the margins when bored. Tiny birds, faces, even a crude drawing of what looks suspiciously like a poop emoji, centuries before emojis were a thing. Historians debate this. Naturally, as night falls, you wrap your scarf tighter, watching the stars emerge overhead. The Tang poets wrote about these skies, about solitude, duty, and the long roads home. You're not thinking of poetry, though. You're thinking of the next cup of tea, the next post station, and whether the Mongols have crossed the Yellow River yet. You barely sleep, not because of danger, though yes, the occasional arrow whizzing from behind a sand dune keeps things spicy, but because the Tang Dynasty doesn't believe in letting the mail get cozy. The moment your latest dispatch is handed off, you're saddled up again, riding under lantern light into terrain so dry your eyelids feel like parchment. Welcome to the world of Tang relay stations, a logistical fever dream built centuries before the idea of GPS or even functioning shoelaces. You pull into the next Yizhan relay station just before dawn. It's modest, a sloped roof, a clay stove still warm from someone else's porridge, and a stable that smells like every animal that has ever had a digestive emergency. But it's home for about 11 minutes. These stations are the beating heart of the system, placed along major routes like beads on a very dusty necklace. You're one of hundreds using them today, part of an invisible web that pulses with imperial energy. The genius of it? Pre-positioned resources. Fresh horses are kept ready. Riders like you don't wait. They grab, go, and gulp noodles on the move. Seriously, that's a thing. Records mention a kind of broth with floating noodles and pickled radish, the ancient prototype of fast food. Historians still argue whether this early ramen was Tang invention or just a happy coincidence caused by overcooked millet and hurry. Your current horse looks exhausted. You too, to be honest. A younger courier slumps in the corner, snoring with one shoe off and a scroll still tucked under his belt. You don't know his name, but you nod as you pass. In this line of work, You measure trust by saddle blisters, not introductions. The station keeper logs your arrival on a bamboo tally sheet. You slap down your travel token, carved wood, notched with the imperial emblem. It grants you access to horses, meals, beds, questionable, and replacement sandals, worse than questionable. Each station is equipped for a few messengers, but during festival seasons or border tensions, they overflow. It's not uncommon to bunk 3 to a mat, head to toe, and wake up nose to ankle with someone who once punched a bandit for fun. Outside, the sky turns purple. Roosters scream like tiny broken trumpets. You sit on the steps, slurping a bowl of salted porridge, watching a camel train slink past. They're merchant caravans, slower, bulkier, and infinitely smellier than you. But even they admire the speed of the relay system. Some bribe postmasters for a glimpse at your route maps, hoping to shave days off their journeys. Most fail. These routes aren't just roads, they're arteries of control, designed with more thought than most emperors gave to war strategy. See, the Tang didn't just slap down a few inns and call it a day. They laid out a postal grid with military precision. Distances between stations were calculated to balance horse stamina with terrain resistance. In hilly regions, the posts are closer. In plains, they're farther apart. Road maintenance was a government mandate, and neglecting your section could lead to a stern letter or a less stern exile. The whole system was funded through taxes, including a special labor tax that made locals help upkeep the stations. In theory, anyway. In practice, you've arrived at more than one station to find the stable boy was actually just a goat with a ribbon tied to its horn. Still, the system works. In good weather, an imperial dispatch can travel over 1,000 kilometers in just a few days. That's faster than most kings in Europe could send a message down the block. You wonder, sometimes, what it's like to be a postman in some frozen Frankish forest. Probably damp, probably cold, definitely underpaid. Inside the station, a minor clerk carefully unrolls your message, checks the seal, and then hands it off to a relay runner. Not every courier goes the whole distance. Many are leg-based, taking the scroll, a single route segment, before passing it along. You, though, have a higher clearance. You're Tier 3 on your badge, which means you handle military or diplomatic orders and can cut through certain checkpoints without inspection. It also means if you screw up, there's a strong chance someone important will yell at you using words like national disgrace and you'll be fertilizing rice fields by winter. You saddle up again. Your next stretch is mountainous, slippery trails, sharp switchbacks, and a scenic view that would be great if your job didn't require you to ignore everything that isn't in front of your horse's nose. As you climb, the air cools and you wrap your scarf tighter. Somewhere beneath your robe, your travel pass bumps against your chest. Tiny rectangle, giant responsibility. About halfway up, you spot something odd. A blue scrap of silk tied to a tree branch. That's a signal. You squint, tug the reins, and steer your horse off the main trail toward a hidden turnoff. Sure enough, a tiny side hut peeks out from behind a rocky outcrop. It's an emergency rest stop, barely big enough to stand in, with a pot of stale tea and a scratched-up ledger on the wall. You add your name and the date, because part of the system's genius is the data trail. Every courier, every scroll, every route is documented. This isn't just mail delivery. It's national surveillance. The Tang Dynasty is watching itself through people like you. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's logistics. You press onward, zigzagging through the ridge. Somewhere behind you, a hawk screeches. Somewhere ahead, another post station waits with fresh tea, a new horse, and hopefully, fewer goats. You think of the thousands of others like you on the roads right now. The system works not because of magic, but because of coordination. Millions of tiny decisions made with care. A wooden bridge reinforced last week. A side trail cleared by a local magistrate. A single message that reaches its target and stops a rebellion before it even begins. You adjust your grip on the reins. The Tang Empire may rise and fall like all empires, but right now, in this moment, it hums like a giant, well-fed machine, and you're the engine's thumping, boot-sore heartbeat. The sun crests behind you now, casting long shadows on the stone path as you descend from the mountains into a green river valley. You breathe deeply. Descent here is different. Damp earth, flowering plum trees, distant cook fires. Welcome to the lowlands, where the Tang couriers finally get a break. Just kidding. You're already late. You kick your horse into a canter, weaving through farmers balancing baskets of fish, and monks walking barefoot with bells jingling from their robes. The roads here are smoother, thanks to regional funding from local governors. A few of them have reputations for pride-driven road obsession. One southern prefect allegedly made his station workers mop the stone roads just so he could brag that Tang officials never stepped in mud. Whether that's exaggerated or not, historians still argue. But your boots? They're clean. That's what matters. This next station is large. Regional hub large. Multiple wings. Its own watchtower. Even a small apothecary where riders with saddle sores can receive questionable herbal ointments. You hobble in, slide off your horse, and immediately step in a steaming pile of donkey output. Never mind the mopping. Inside the courtyard, messages are flying in and out like birds in a marketplace. Dozens of riders, a few local administrators, and scrolls everywhere. Some are marked in black wax, ordinary tax and census reports, others in red, military or sensitive political intel. And occasionally, you spot one in jade green wax. These are heavenly decrees, imperial orders straight from the top. Nobody touches those except Tier 1s. You're a Tier 3, remember? Which means you carry messages like the border guard at Pingling is under investigation, or Sha Prefect's tax shipments are mysteriously underweight. Again, you head toward the dispatch chamber. The clerk there doesn't smile. He never does. He's the kind of man who sharpens his brushes just to feel something. You hand over the latest scroll, mutter the code phrase of the week, cranes fly east at dawn. Honestly, who picks these? And receive your next assignment. Surprise! It's a loop back. You're heading west again. A reverse delivery. Someone in the previous prefecture forgot to include the imperial stamp on a crucial document. And now that oversight gets to bounce around the countryside like an expensive game of tag. On the upside, you're given a comfort pouch, a small cloth bag with dried plum slices, sugared ginger, and if you're lucky, roasted soybeans. You open yours and find rice crackers. Cracked rice crackers. Naturally, you head back to the stables. The new horse is glossy black, with eyes like it's already judged your life choices. It's named Shadow. Of course it is. You mount up and turn westward again. Along the road, you spot infrastructure miracles that city poets love to ignore. Drainage canals, reinforced bridges, and little stone benches for postal runners to sit and scream into the void. Okay, not officially, but you've used one that way. One bridge in particular, the Fengquan Arch, is an engineering marvel. Built from interlocking stone slabs with no mortar, it's still standing today, centuries later. The Tang engineers were clever like that. They used everything from bamboo scaffolding to ancient surveying tools that operated on water balance. Point. Some say these were inherited from Han techniques. Others argue that Tang improved them significantly with bronze-cast measuring rods and standardized slope ratios. Who invented what and when is a debate you let the scholars sort out, while you cling to your saddle, trying not to fall into the river below. As you ride, you pass a temple where bells ring out the hour. You check the position of the sun, nod grimly, and quicken pace. You're behind schedule. Not because of laziness, but because a minor landslide last night rerouted part of the trail. Happens more than you'd think. Local monks sometimes carve alternate symbols into rocks as impromptu detour signs. You're trained to spot them. 3 stacked pebbles or a rabbit scratched into tree bark. You followed both to safety before. Once, you followed what turned out to be a prankster's squirrel drawing and ended up waist-deep in a pond. You don't talk about that day. Hours pass in the saddle. Your thighs ache. You start humming an old drinking song that some couriers swear helps with pacing. 1 scroll, 2 scrolls, 3 scrolls more. If I drop one, I'll mop the floor. It doesn't rhyme well in Chinese either. Midday, you pause under a pagoda roof built as a shelter just for couriers. There's even a water trough and a bamboo fan nailed to a beam. You lean against a post, eating the last of your rice crackers, while watching a line of ants carry off a crumb 3 times their size. You feel a certain kinship. A local elder wanders up with a stick and a broad grin. He gestures at your badge, says something about his grandson wanting to become a courier. You nod, smile, and resist the urge to laugh. It's not a bad life, but it wears on you. Hard on the joints, harder on the stomach. The elder pats your arm, offers you a boiled egg wrapped in cloth, and walks off. You eat it. It's delicious. Back on the road, the wind shifts, bringing the scent of pine and rain. You hear thunder in the distance. Great. You might get soaked again. You tie your scarf tighter, whisper encouragement to your horse, and brace for the next leg. A few kilometers out, you encounter a minor checkpoint. Uniformed guards ask for your token and logbook. You show them, recite the week's phrase again. They chuckle. Guess they think cranes fly east at dawn is romantic, and they wave you through. One of them asks if you've seen Mongol scouts up in the hills. You shake your head. He frowns and mutters something about border friction. You don't linger. You've got a delivery to make, and the post waits for no one. Even in the rain, even if you're hungry, tired, and soaked through to the bone. Because here's the truth, no poet ever puts in a scroll. The empire doesn't run on power or poetry. It runs on people like you, galloping through the storm with water in your boots and a scroll pressed to your heart, like it's the last thing that matters. And tonight, it is. Rain like this doesn't ask for permission. It simply arrives, hard, slanted, cold, and throws itself across the landscape with the kind of petty vengeance usually reserved for jilted lovers or underpaid bureaucrats. You pull your hemp cloak tighter around your shoulders, though it's already soaked, and press forward. The road here is slick, carved through hills that funnel wind straight into your face. Your horse hates it. You hate it. The scroll you're carrying doesn't care. It's wax-sealed and waterproofed in oiled leather, like a pampered noble in travel robes, dry no matter the storm. The mud sucks at your horse's hooves with every step, turning what should be a 3-hour ride into a slippery dance of caution and curses. But this route is crucial. You're skirting the southwestern trade corridor, an artery that ferries silk, spices, and seasonal gossip between provinces. The Tang postal system thrives here, a little battered but unbroken, propped up by bridges, by rest stations, and by couriers like you who probably have trenchfoot by now. You stop briefly at a roadside post, a glorified shed, really, with one wall missing and a stack of firewood someone forgot to dry. You light a tiny flame with a flint rock and hold your hands near it, just long enough to feel your fingers again. Then it's back into the downpour. Somewhere along this sodden trail, your path crosses an ox cart, huge, ponderous, and slow as imperial reform. The driver squints at you through the rain, raises a hand in greeting, and says something about bandits up north. You nod politely and keep moving. You'll believe in those bandits when they learn to steal something more interesting than dried apricots and ceramic roof tiles. Still, you glance back over your shoulder, just in case. The Tang Dynasty's postal system wasn't built on optimism. It was built on redundancy. Multiple routes, overlapping couriers, emergency detour plans, all designed so that if one scroll didn't make it through, another would. Historians still argue whether this strategy was copied from earlier Han logistics or invented wholesale by Tang bureaucrats tired of excuses. Tired of excuses? You ride through a narrow pass lined with bamboo, the stalks bending and clattering in the wind like chimes tuned to mild panic. A stone marker tells you you're just 10 li from the next relay station, around 5 kilometers. You whisper to your horse, "We're close," even though you know horses don't care about distance, only carrots and dry hooves. Suddenly, movement on the ridge catches your eye. You freeze. A figure, a human one probably, disappears behind a pine tree. You wait, body tense, hand near your dagger, more ceremonial than useful. It once bent, cutting a turnip. But nothing happens. Probably just a forager, or a spy, or an over-enthusiastic squirrel. Again, you don't talk about the squirrel incident. You make it to the station by twilight. It's sturdy, squat, and blessedly dry. Smoke curls from the roof. A dog barks once, disinterested. The stable boy takes your horse with a grunt, and you shuffle inside, dripping a puddle the size of Lake Tai onto the floorboards. Inside, the station keeper hands you a dry towel and a look of practiced disapproval. He's been here 30 years and knows when someone's late. You're 9 minutes behind schedule. He logs it anyway. Every arrival, every departure, every deviation gets recorded. That's what makes this system better than its successors. It's not glamorous. It's not high-tech, but it's consistent. And consistency in an empire this size is worth more than gold. You remove your scroll from its oilskin pouch and present it. The keeper sniffs, checks the seal, and drops it into a bamboo scroll case marked Rush, Western Front. You're told to rest. You know better. There's another scroll waiting for you, bound for a border outpost just past the mountains. Military orders, they say. You suspect it's just another border census report or a requisition for salt pork. But you take it without question, because asking too many questions in this job gets you noticed, and being noticed gets you reassigned to swamp duty. Nobody survives swamp duty. Dinner is thin congee with slices of radish and a single salted plum that's clearly lived a hard life. You eat it anyway. At the next table, another courier, a younger one, still growing into his uniform, asks you how long you've been doing this. You shrug, long enough to know that the mail always moves faster than the truth. He laughs, then quietly asks if the Mongols are really as fast as everyone says. You chew slowly, considering. Truth is, yes, they're terrifyingly fast. Nomadic cavalry trained since childhood, their messengers could cover distances at speeds even the Tang system couldn't match in rough terrain. But here's the twist. While the Mongols were mobile, they didn't yet have the infrastructure you're riding through. Not in this era. Not yet. The Tang beat them, not in horse breeding, but in road building, logistics, and above all, planning. The Tang roads connect mountains, rivers, and markets. They weave the empire together. The Mongols? Brilliant raiders, yes, but raiding isn't routing. Not yet. The younger courier listens wide-eyed, then excuses himself to polish his saddle. You lie back on a rough straw mat, your cloak bunched into a pillow. Outside, the rain slows, ticking softly on the roof like 1,000 tiny footsteps. You think about all the parts of the empire you're tied to, all the messages flowing from capital to outpost, from governor to soldier, from one tired hand to the next. You're a thread in something huge, something invisible but vital. You close your eyes and for a moment, it feels like floating. You don't sleep. Not really, but you drift. Midnight. The keeper nudges you awake. Another dispatch. The rain has stopped. You rise without a word, saddle up a new horse, and ride out into the starless dark. Because the mail moves at all hours, and so do you. The stars tonight are shrouded in clouds, but your path is lit by the soft orange glow of oil lamps swaying from the horns of mountain goats. Not really. But wouldn't that be helpful? No, your only light is a wax paper lantern swaying from your saddle, casting ghostly shadows across the trail. The path snakes upward into the hills, the air growing thinner and colder. It smells of moss, damp pine, and that peculiar metallic tingle that tells you snow isn't far off. Even in spring, you flex your fingers, trying to keep the blood moving. Your gloves are leather, stiff with age. Like you, they were once softer. The route tonight leads into the Bojiao Highlands, a notoriously tricky segment of the Tang courier network. Only experienced riders are assigned here. You're not flattered. That just means you failed to quit enough times. This part of the network is dotted with watchtowers, low, square buildings manned by rotating units of guards, who spend their nights watching for smoke signals or carrier falcons. Yes, falcons. The Tang use them occasionally for military alerts, especially in emergency scenarios. But despite their speed, birds have a tragic tendency to fly into storms, mountains, or occasionally into cooking pots. When hungry villagers get desperate, falcons are not a stable communications medium. That's why people like you still exist. You climb higher, passing under a stone arch where prayer flags flap in the breeze. Left behind by some wandering monk who thought the spirits of the road needed blessing. Maybe they did. You've certainly cursed it often enough to make up for everyone else. In this terrain, the relay stations are farther apart, more isolated, more Spartan, fewer luxuries, less food. You once arrived at a station where the only meal was boiled pine needles and something that looked suspiciously like owl. You didn't ask. You just ate. At dawn, the mist rolls in, low and thick, hugging the trail like a sleepy dragon. Your horse snorts nervously. Visibility drops to a few arm lengths. You slow to a crawl, guiding yourself by memory and by the occasional carved stone marker that sticks out of the underbrush. Each is engraved with a stylized cloud, part of the Tang network's silent signage system. Routes named after natural elements, so couriers could recognize them even if they couldn't read. Not that you can't read. You read just fine. You just hate doing it while trying not to fall off a cliff. Somewhere near a bend called Whispering Turn, a group of mountain farmers waves you down. One of them gestures urgently at a landslide blocking their trail. You dismount, trudge through the fog with them, and assess the damage. 2 massive boulders, a torn footpath, and a few trees splayed like broken fans. The regular road's gone. Luckily, you're not regular. You know about the goat trail that cuts under the ridge, known only to couriers and smugglers. And, honestly, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. You offer a silent thanks to your old trainer, a grizzled woman named Auntie Gui, who once made you memorize every alternate path by drawing them in mud with a stick. You forget the mountain forgets you, she'd warned. She also used to hit people with a chicken feather when they got cocky. You still flinch when birds fly too close. You lead your horse down the hidden trail, ducking under low branches, skidding on loose shale. It's not fast, but it's faster than doubling back, and it keeps the scroll moving forward. That's the point. Always forward. The trail spits you out into a clearing. Hours later, your face streaked with sweat and pine sap. You pause only to breathe, then remount. The station's not far now. You arrive just as the sun breaks through the mist, golden light pouring across the roof tiles like melted honey. The station here is old, carved directly into a stone outcrop with wooden shutters and a fire pit inside. A bored station master greets you with a nod, accepting your dispatch and handing you a fresh one almost without looking. "Urgent," he mutters. "Southwestern detachment. Don't read it. Just go." You do as told, tucking the scroll into your inner vest, close to your skin. It's warmer there. And honestly, if you're going to dive exposure, at least the message will have a better chance of staying dry. You stop only long enough to down a cup of hot barley tea and chew a handful of preserved persimmon slices. Sweet, sharp, and full of fiber. The kind of food that sticks with you through multiple mountain passes, sometimes literally. By late morning, you're descending again, this time into the subtropical valleys that hug the empire's southern edge. The climate here shifts fast. Within hours, the snow mist gives way to buzzing insects, thick leafy overgrowth, and the earthy stink of wet vines. You've arrived at the forest corridor. This region is why the Tang postal system employed specialized terrain couriers. Riders like you who trained in diverse landscapes, desert, steppe, jungle, mountain. Each terrain brought its own problems. Here, mudslides, leeches, tigers, the occasional snake in your boot. One courier once found a civet curled in his saddlebag. That courier now sends rice deliveries in the capital. Safer, but dull. In the humid heat, your clothes cling, your boots squish. You fantasize about cold beer and soft pillows, neither of which exist in your reality. At least, not out here. You make good time, though, thanks to an old logging path. The forest smells like pepperwood and guava. Cicadas scream overhead. A monkey throws something at you. You do not take it personally. Everyone's having a rough day. The southern station sits beside a river bend, guarded by a wooden palisade and two guards who clearly lost a dice game. They're sweating, bored, and mostly interested in your water gourd. You hand it over for a refill and get waved inside. This station is smaller, but friendlier. The clerk cracks a joke about your hair, which is sticking up like a frightened porcupine, hands you a rice ball, and points to the next dispatch. It's light, labeled Whisper Scroll, a poetic term for something that's probably just a minor reassignment order or a low-level spy report. Still, it has that green wax seal again. You've now handled 2 today. Something is happening. But you don't ask. You just take the scroll, bow slightly, and ride. Because asking too many questions in the Tang courier system is a fast way to get reassigned to iceberg duty. And iceberg duty doesn't even come with rice balls. Your horse's hooves beat a steady rhythm along the packed dirt road, the kind of rhythm that starts to blend with your own heartbeat after a while. You lean forward slightly in the saddle, not because you're in a rush, though, let's be honest, you always are, but because this stretch of road calls for vigilance. You're now in Riverland territory, flat, open, deceptively calm. But ask any seasoned courier, and they'll tell you, this region is where things like to go wrong. Still, the landscape is beautiful in that wide, slow Tang Dynasty way. To your left, rice paddies stretch in perfect checkerboard rows, glinting with water and patience. Farmers bend at the waist, conical hats bobbing in a steady rhythm, whispering songs you can't quite hear. A water buffalo blinks at you with the deep disinterest of something that's seen 100 riders and not one of them offered snacks. To your right, the river runs low and brown, swollen from spring runoff, carrying the occasional floating branch, or once, you swear, a half-dressed statue of the Bodhisattva. No one ever explained that one. The road here is part of what the Tang called the Jiangnan tributary route, a crucial artery feeding communications to and from the imperial ports and naval bases. This road, like many others in the empire, is lined at intervals with mile markers, stone columns etched with the distance to Chang'an. Some still bear the names of couriers long dead, their legacies scratched in by friends or rivals. You pass one today that reads, Qin Lu, fastest in storm 732. You nod at it. You've heard stories about her. Lightning fast, fearless in typhoon winds, lost to a fever in the marshlands. The scroll you're carrying rustles softly with each jolt of the saddle. It's tied with that distinctive green wax again. The second one today. That makes 3 this week. You're not supposed to know what that means, but you've been in this game long enough to understand the patterns. Green wax is for urgent intelligence, the kind that moves between generals and shadowy court advisors. Sometimes it means rebel activity. Sometimes it means promotions. Occasionally, it means someone is going to die, and they'd just like it scheduled properly. Historians still argue whether these green wax scrolls were encrypted or simply written in deliberately obscure metaphors. Either way, you don't read them, not because you're obedient, but because in this job, ignorance is a life skill. You pass a fish-drying village that reeks of salt and ambition. Children chase your horse, laughing and trying to sell you pickled eel on a stick. You wave them off with a tired smile. A few kilometers later, you catch sight of smoke on the horizon. Dark, slow, deliberate. Not cooking smoke, not a fire. You slow down. Your horse senses it too, ears flicking forward, then back. You approach cautiously, rounding a bend until you see it. A cart overturned. Broken pottery scattered across the road like teeth. The ox is gone. So is the driver. You dismount and examine the scene, squatting beside a cracked jug. Dried red paint marks. The cart was carrying temple offerings, candles, ceramics, and yes, small bronze bells still tangled in a fallen sash. That rules out bandits. Bandits don't steal bells, or if they do, they don't leave the expensive ones behind. But you know better than to play detective. You move on. An hour later, you reach a small river ferry. The boatman recognizes your uniform and waves you on. No fee. Postal couriers ride free, a perk established by imperial decree after an unfortunate incident involving a mail runner, a stingy ferryman, and an unplanned swim. Now, ferries are required to transport you or risk bureaucratic wrath. The boat creaks across the river, water slapping gently at its sides. You take a moment to breathe. Your legs ache, your ribs are sore from the saddle strap, and your shoulders are carrying about 5 pounds of tension you didn't have last week. Still, you sit up straighter as you disembark. The road here splits into 2. One trail curves toward the coast. The other heads west into the low-lying marshes. Your scroll is marked for Jing Fort, which means the marsh. You sigh. Jing Fort is famous for 3 things: mosquitoes, soldiers who hate being stationed there, and something called foot soup. You've had it. Twice. You still wake up thinking about it, and not in a good way. The path to the fort is elevated, built on stilts and wooden slats above the bog. You guide your horse carefully along it, trying not to spook the bird life. Cranes flap noisily into the air as you pass, their wings slicing through the mist. Somewhere beneath the reeds, frogs begin a choir. The air here smells like wet rope and regret. You reach Jing Fort by dusk. It's little more than a walled mud brick structure, manned by a rotating unit of infantry and one perpetually grumpy quartermaster. She eyes you as you arrive, mutters something about another bloody message, and takes the scroll with a suspicious look. "Wait here," she says. "Might be a return dispatch." You wait. You feed your horse. You try not to think about the foot soup steaming in a pot somewhere nearby. Eventually, she returns, hands you another scroll, this one sealed with black wax. That's rare, very rare. You slip it into your courier satchel and prepare to leave. Heading west? She asks. You nod. Careful. Word is, there's movement. You raise an eyebrow. She leans in. Nomads. Patrol saw smoke signals out past the Reed Hills. Could be a test. Could be a push. Just don't sleep too deep. You thank her and ride. It's fully dark now, the marsh behind you, the road ahead lit only by stars, and not many of those. You hum a little tune under your breath, something you learned as a child, something about tigers and tea. It helps pass the time. The horse plods forward, steady as breath. You think about the black wax. You think about the green wax. You think about how couriers are never told anything until someone's already bleeding. And still, you ride, because no matter what, the message must move faster than the threat. And tonight, you're the only thing standing between silence and warning. The road west stretches before you like a ribbon lost in fog. It's quiet now, almost too quiet. Even the insects seem to have taken the night off, which out here is more worrying than comforting. You tighten your grip on the reins and glance at the tree line, half expecting movement. But there's only darkness, shifting like water, whispering like ghosts. You pass a dead lantern post. Its iron bracket hangs crooked, the oil long since burned away. You make a mental note. Maintenance out here is slipping. Not surprising. This section of the route skirts the outer frontier, where resources are scarce, and soldiers even scarcer. But it means you have to be sharper, faster. A misstep here doesn't cost you just time. It can cost you everything. This frontier region, once patrolled regularly, is now lightly garrisoned, part of the Empire's shifting priorities. With the Tang focus turned toward court intrigue and coastal trade, these inland orders have become thinner, more vulnerable. You ride past an old earthen wall, its top half collapsed from age or neglect. A plum tree grows out of its side, defiantly flowering in the moonlight. A reminder, maybe, that the land always outlasts the dynasty. You pluck a blossom as you pass, tucking it into your satchel next to the black wax scroll. Some say plum blossoms ward off bad luck. You say, couldn't hurt. Your destination tonight is Guandao Station, one of the oldest outposts in the courier chain. Originally built during the Sui Dynasty and upgraded by Tang engineers into a hybrid fortress relay. Its claim to fame? The underground stable system, carved into limestone caves to keep the horses cool in summer and warm in winter. It smells like damp hay and old secrets. You love it. You reach the outpost near midnight. A sleepy guard lets you in after checking your seal. ... And you dismount with a sigh that feels like it comes from your bones. The station master, a wiry man with half a beard and twice the caffeine of a normal human, nods as you hand him the green wax dispatch. He raises an eyebrow at the black wax scroll. Back route? He asks, a little too casually. You nod once. He whistles low. Good luck, he says, and then, because he's not a complete monster, hands you a dumpling. Hot, stuffed with pork and ginger, wrapped in a lotus leaf. You eat it standing up, leaning against a post while your horse gets watered. The dumpling is so good you almost forget you're essentially on a one-way path into uncertainty. Almost. There's no relay from Guandao Station toward the hidden back route. That path, what some call the Whisper Cut, is unofficial, off the map, meant only for scrolls, sealed in black or gold wax. No civilians, no side chatter. You go alone. You leave before dawn, riding west-northwest through a bamboo corridor so dense it swallows sound. The path is no wider than your shoulders, marked only by faint red cords tied around the occasional stalk. There, the path is no wider than your shoulders. They say these cords are retied every month by silent runners. You've never seen one. You're not sure you want to. The horse knows the route better than you do. You let it guide, reins loose in your hands, eyes scanning for traps. Not bandit traps, but natural ones. Mud pits, falling branches, the occasional boar. One courier swears a tiger stalked her once through this route. She started wearing bells after that. You opt for silence. You figure if a tiger wants you, it'll take you. Bells or no. You reach a clearing just after sunrise, mist curling around your boots like smoke. There's a shrine here, tiny, hidden behind a bush of red camellias. You dismount, light a single incense stick, and bow 3 times, not out of piety, but habit. Everyone who takes the Whisper Cut stops here, not because the gods demand it, because the ghosts do. It's said that in the early years of the Tang Dynasty, 5 couriers died defending a scroll here, ambushed by rogue Sogdian mercenaries trying to intercept tax ledgers bound for the capital. The scroll was never recovered. The station was burned. Now the forest stands where they fell. You whisper a thank you. You don't know why, but it feels right. Riding again, you hit the ridgeline by mid-morning. From here, you can see the open plains beyond, broad, golden, and dotted with the faint shadows of tents. Not Tang tents, nomad tents, the steppes. You pause. Out here, things get unpredictable. Some historians argue that the Tang Empire, in its golden age, was far more integrated with steppe tribes than we think. Trade, intermarriage, diplomacy, espionage, it all swirled together like a pot of spicy hot pot. Others claim it was a powder keg waiting to go off. The truth, as usual, probably lies somewhere in between a love letter and a battle report. But for now, all you see are shapes, silent, still, too far to track. You descend into the valley cautiously. The black wax scroll now feels heavier. You remind yourself not to check it, not even a peek, even if the seal's just barely cracked. The Tang had specific punishments for opening a high-security scroll: loss of position, imprisonment, sometimes exile. But the worst? Being made to transcribe imperial harvest records by hand for 5 years, with no food except cabbage and congee. You'll take your chances with the tigers. You arrive at the final contact point, just a lone stone slab under a willow tree. It's not even marked as a station, but the slab is carved with a single ideogram: Shin, trust. You dismount and wait. An hour passes, then 2. Finally, just as the light begins to turn golden, a figure appears, cloaked, silent, riding a dust-colored mare. You recognize the posture. A fellow courier. Higher clearance than you. No greeting, just a nod. You hand over the black wax scroll. The courier tucks it away and turns to leave without a word. That's it. No glory, no reward, no applause. Just the quiet satisfaction of doing your part. You mount up again, turn east, and start the long ride back. Because while the message has moved on, there's always another one waiting. Always. You ride in silence for a while, letting the wind do most of the talking. It's cooler now, the sun dipping behind layers of distant cloud, painting the sky in streaks of rust and rose. The kind of light that makes even danger look poetic. You roll your shoulders and loosen the reins, letting your horse fall into its own pace. You've done your job. The scroll is delivered. The black wax is someone else's problem now. But even as you head back toward the safer routes of the Tang courier system, a part of your mind refuses to settle. The whisper cut is behind you, sure, but the step is still just over your shoulder, always watching, always waiting for a slip. You make a mental note to oil your gear more thoroughly tonight. Nothing puts you in the sights of a Mongol scout faster than the sound of a squeaky saddle buckle. Here's the funny thing. Centuries later, when people talk about the Mongol Empire and its speed, they tend to forget one crucial detail. The Tang did it first. Or at least, they came impressively close. The Mongols had their yam system, yes, relay stations, fresh horses, passport documents that made you practically invincible across Asia. But the Tang Dynasty? The Tang had the Yichuan Dao, the post road network, and a set of logistics so tight you could set your water clock by it. Historians still argue whether the Mongol system borrowed directly from the Tang model or if it evolved independently. Some say Genghis Khan was inspired by stories of the Chinese courier network when planning his own. Others think it was a case of convergent innovation. When you're trying to conquer or govern a massive chunk of land, fast mail just makes sense. You, meanwhile, are just trying to get to the next relay before dark. You arrive at a mid-level station nestled in a grove of cypress trees, their branches twisted like arthritic fingers against the pale sky. The station smells like firewood, horse sweat, and bean paste stew. A good sign. You dismount and hand off your dispatch log to the clerk inside, a sleepy-looking young man with more ink on his robes than in his registry book. He looks up, squints at your seal, and then perks up like someone who's just realized they're speaking to a minor legend. You took the whisper cut, he says. You shrug. You see the nomads? You nod once. He whistles, low and admiring, then scribbles a note in your logbook before offering you the best bed. If by bed you mean a slightly less splintery wooden cot covered with something that used to be straw but is now mostly history and hay dust. You sleep like a rock until, of course, the dream comes, the one you always get after a black wax delivery. You're in a field and everything is silent. Not quiet, silent. No wind, no birds, no hooves. Just you, holding a scroll that burns in your hands like fire, though it doesn't singe your skin. You open it, and instead of writing, there's just a mirror. And in that mirror, your reflection leans forward and says one thing: too slow. You wake with a start, breath sharp in your chest. It's still dark out, not quite morning. You rise anyway. The sooner you're moving, the less time the dream has to catch up. Back on the road, your thoughts wander to the training you received back in Chang'an. Remember that? The weeks of endless repetition, saddle drills, river crossings, how to tell a rebel map from a merchant invoice just by the way it's folded. You remember one of your instructors saying something that stuck with you. A Tang courier must move faster than regret. He also said something about always packing a second pair of socks, but that part you forgot. As you pass through the old pine forest, you notice something unusual. Fresh horse tracks in the mud, and not from your direction. You slow your pace, scanning the area. The hoofprints are small, fast, pony-sized, steppe breed. No shoes, Mongol. You keep riding, but now your hand drifts closer to the hilt of your side dagger. You may be fast, but you're not foolish. Eventually, you reach a high ridge where Tang engineers had long ago carved out a lookout post. The platform still stands, moss-covered and weather-worn. You climb up just to get a lay of the land, and what you see makes your breath pause in your throat. Smoke, far off, maybe 2 valleys over. Not from a cooking fire, from a signal tower. Each Tang watchtower was part of a complex relay system, not unlike yours, except they passed light instead of words. Fire in sequence. One tower sees it, lights theirs. Within minutes, a message could cross hundreds of kilometers. It wasn't precise, but it was fast. If the tower is smoking now, it means someone saw something they weren't supposed to, possibly something heading your way. You descend from the platform quickly but carefully. Rushing now would only make noise. You tuck your collar higher, tighten the saddle, and ride with the kind of cautious rhythm that says, "I might be prey." The Tang system had contingency plans for this. Emergency stations, hiding caches, disguises. You even have a civilian robe rolled up in your satchel, dyed a dull brown, meant to make you look like a traveling ink merchant. It won't hold up under scrutiny, but if you're lucky, it might buy you a few seconds. Luck, of course, is in short supply on days like this. By midday, the terrain opens into a narrow ravine. You know this place, Stone Teeth Gorge, named for the jagged limestone that juts from the ground like the fangs of some ancient fossil. There's only one way through, and it's tight enough that you have to dismount and lead the horse by the reins. Every step echoes. Halfway through, you hear it. A whistle, not birdsong, a coded whistle, courier standard. You freeze, grip tightening on the reins. Then, from the other side of the gorge, another rider appears. Pale robe, Tang colors. You relax. Slightly, she nods at you, gestures up ahead. Cleared, you ask? Mostly, she says. One scout, but he wasn't looking for us. Looked lost, actually. You both laugh, softly. Lost Mongol scouts are like lost wolves. Never truly lost, just circling. You thank her and keep moving, feeling the tension drain a little from your shoulders. At the far end of the gorge, you stop for water at a stream that tastes of iron and old rain. You let your horse drink deeply, and as you refill your flask, you notice a dragonfly land on your sleeve. It stays there, oddly still. You mount again and push forward, the road leveling out beneath you, the station flags of the next post visible on the horizon. Your thoughts return to the Mongol pony tracks, to the smoke, to the courier with the pale robe. And beneath it all, that steady truth. The Tang system isn't just fast, it's resilient. Built not just with roads and horses, but with people like you. People who ride into the silent spaces, carrying words that shape empires. You smile despite yourself, because out here with every hoofbeat, you're not just delivering history, you're making it. You ride until the sun is high, a lazy orange disk filtering through the thin veil of mountain mist. The trail winds gently now, a ribbon of stone and packed dirt that threads through pine groves and overlooks little valleys cupped in the land like secret palms. It's a stretch of road you know well. Calmer terrain, fewer ambushes, more tea stalls. You let your breath slow, allow your shoulders to drop. Your legs are sore in that good, I earn this way. And your horse seems to sense the shift in pace too, its gait looser, more relaxed. The next station you reach is modest, a 3-building setup with a lean-to stable and a kitchen that somehow always smells like sesame and radish, no matter what's cooking. It's called Rock Lantern Station, named for a boulder on the edge of the hill that glows white in moonlight. Or, according to one very bored courier, because someone once tried to light it on fire during a drunken dare. Either way, it's a good place to rest. Inside, the station keeper greets you with a familiar nod and a bowl of warm barley tea. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat that's probably older than you and sip slowly while the keeper updates the log. The station's bulletin wall is cluttered with messages. Warnings about rain-flooded roads near the river. Notes about a missing satchel, likely eaten by a goat, judging by the illustration. And a strange new posting written in silver ink. Imperial audience requested. The message reads, Designated courier, rotating assignment. You stare at it for a moment, then at the seal pressed into the corner. Genuine, not a prank, a real summons from the court, which is, you know, fine, normal, totally something they do. Except they don't. Not for couriers, usually. Historians still argue whether Tang Emperor Xuanzong personally involved himself in the logistics network. Some say he micromanaged the whole system, hand-picking routes, testing scroll protection oils, and once, famously, racing a courier in a mock relay challenge. Others believe the story was exaggerated by court poets to build his image as the people's emperor. The truth? Somewhere between a real horse and a very expensive painting of one. You eat a quick meal, steamed buns and pickled greens, and head out before sunset. There's still time to make one more relay before nightfall, and honestly, you'd rather be moving. The thought of a summons from the court rattles something deep in your stomach, something dumplings can't quite soothe. As you ride, the terrain changes again. The path flattens into a wide gravel track flanked by ancient willow trees. Their branches sway like slow dancers in the wind, brushing your shoulders now and then. You're heading into the foothills of Luozhou province where the courier network is thickest. More stations, more riders, more bureaucracy. You'll miss the silence of the frontier. But the safety, well, that's not so bad. Up ahead, you spot another rider coming fast from the east. You squint. They're wearing courier gray, but with a red sash, supervisor rank. Uh-oh. He reins in beside you, his face flushed, scroll tucked tight against his belt. You, he says, panting slightly, got the black wax drop cleared? You nod. Good. You're being reassigned. You blink. To what? He points back toward the city. Chang'an, direct audience. You're heading in. Of course. Of course. You want to ask what it's about? Treason? Promotion? A particularly slow performance review? But the courier supervisor just shrugs, mutters, high clearance, and gallops off before you can fire back. So, Chang'an it is. You ride through the night, stopping only once at a half station to switch horses and grab a roll of dried apricot paste. It tastes like sugar and regret. By dawn, the city walls rise ahead like a gray wave frozen in time. Even from this distance, Chang'an is enormous. Grand avenues, towers like teeth, banners fluttering in the wind, gates the size of castles. It's the beating heart of the empire, pulsing with trade, diplomacy, theater, spies, and noodle carts. Lots of noodle carts. You approach the West Gate checkpoint and flash your courier seal. The guards barely blink. You could be carrying a death warrant or a dinner order. They don't care. As long as your seal checks out, you're in. Inside, the city stirs. A group of students in scholar robes debate loudly about whether the moon or the ocean is more romantic. You vote ocean. Less poetry, more boats. You're escorted to the Ministry of Communications building, a stone edifice with carved eaves and a bronze crane perched over the entrance. The hallways inside are quiet. Too quiet. You expect the usual chaos. Shouting clerks, barking officials, someone arguing over tea rations. But today, it's all hush and murmurs. An aide leads you through a labyrinth of corridors, finally stopping at a small chamber lined with silk hangings and a low writing desk. You wait. Minutes pass. Then the door slides open and a figure enters. Not the emperor, not a chancellor. A woman in scholar's robes, silver hair twisted into a knot, eyes sharp enough to pierce armor. Sit, she says. You sit. You delivered the black wax scroll? You nod. She opens a ledger and makes a mark. Then she looks up and says something that sends a chill down your spine. That was the last scroll before the northern unrest began. You blink. Unrest? She nods. Minor now, but potentially viral. Rumors of an alliance between certain steppe forces and internal defectors. Of course. You'd felt it, hadn't you? The quiet in the forest, the flicker of smoke. The lost Mongol scout who probably wasn't lost at all. She continues, your part is done, but you may be contacted again. Couriers who've handled classified material are kept available. You manage not to wince. Take 2 days rest, she adds. Then report to your sector captain. Outside, the street is alive again. Drummers, hawkers, paper fan sellers. You buy a sticky rice ball from a vendor and lean against a post to eat it. You should be resting, but your mind is racing. The Tang courier system isn't just about speed. It's about timing. Every dispatch, every route, every rider, like gears in a watch. And when one gear shifts, the whole thing follows. You finish your rice ball, wipe your hands, and start walking back to the local station house. Your legs are sore. Your brain is buzzing. But you can't help it. Part of you already misses the road. The rain left behind a world polished and dangerous. Every leaf shines like lacquer, and the path is a ribbon of wet stone daring you to misstep. Your horse snorts, hooves clopping against earth that wants very much to become mud again. But you don't stop. Not now. Not with both a black wax and gold wax scroll secured inside your satchel, radiating pressure like tiny suns wrapped in oilskin. The gold seal wasn't just any message. You'd glimpse the emblem pressed into the wax. Longmen Imperial cipher, usually reserved for direct orders between military governors and the emperor himself. You're nuts as the trail dips and twists into a canopy of twisted pine. You catch another sound, faint, almost buried in the rhythm of hooves and wind. Footsteps on stone. You freeze. Pull your horse off the trail behind a mossy outcropping. You hold your breath, feel your heartbeat thump like a drum at a village festival. The steps grow louder, and then a man appears on the trail. He's dressed in merchant garb, but his boots are wrong. Too soft, too silent. His gait is purposeful, too practiced. No pack animal, no walking stick. Just a small roll of canvas strapped across his back. And the kind of posture that says, "I know where your kidneys are and how to reach them." You wait, watching. He pauses near where your tracks veer off the trail, kneels, brushes the ground with one hand. Then he moves on, not toward you, ahead of you. He's scouting. Your mind races. If he's a Mongol scout, covert or hired, he's not working alone. And if he's in front of you, it means they've started closing the net from the far side, which means your safest route now is actually behind you. Unless you sigh. Unless you go off the route entirely, you study the map inked into your memory. Thanks, cartography instructor with the obsession for mnemonic rhymes. There's an old quarry about a little west, abandoned, dry this time of year, mostly forgotten. But through its northern edge runs a smuggler's cut, not on any official courier route, but known to every bootlegger and rebel courier who ever shared tea. You tug your reins. Your horse groans. She knows that path's no joke, steep, crumbling, and likely to turn your knees into porridge. But she goes anyway, loyal to the core, braver than most humans you know. The quarry's edge rises before you like the ribs of a dead beast. Tall rock faces, mottled with black lichen. You dismount and lead the way, ducking into a narrow cleft barely wide enough for a person. The smuggler's path is still there. Thank the ancestors. A shallow ledge winds up the side of the cliff, partially collapsed in one place, but navigable if you don't mind scraping your shin on ancient shale. You climb. Carefully. Halfway up, your foot slips. Rock tumbles. You flatten yourself against the wall, heart pounding. A hawk cries above, then silence. You press on, reach the top, and finally crawl out into a clearing, blanketed in wild garlic and thornbush. You're panting, but you're not dead. Success. Sort of. From here, you can cut through an old logging path that snakes through the forested highlands. A forgotten trail, narrow but direct. It won't show on any official Tang courier map, but you know it from stories, warnings, half-sung. But Mongols don't belong there either. And that right now is more important. You push onward, entering the fox grove just as the light begins to fail. It's colder here, unnaturally so. The trees are thin and tall, and their branches interlock like a ribcage over your head. Your horse hesitates. You whisper to her, and she keeps moving. The path is silent, too silent. You try to hum a tune under your breath just to break the hush. it comes out wrong, warped, like sound travels funny here. And then you see them, red ribbons tied to branches, dozens of them, some new, some old, prayers, warnings, offerings. You've entered someone's domain. Your boots crunch over brittle pine needles, the wind stirs, and then a voice, female, high and lilting, calls out from behind a tree. You carry too many secrets. You spin, hand to dagger. No one's there, just the whisper of branches in wind. A fringe tail? Probably. Exhaustion and adrenaline? Definitely. But the scrolls in your pack feel heavier now. The black one hums like a struck bell. The gold one, cold, like a knife edge. You shake off the feeling, press on. Eventually, the path opens again, and with it, a break in the trees, moonlight spilling over an old waymarker stone carved with Tang script. You're back in mapped territory. Almost. You check the satchel once more. The seals are intact. The weight is the same. But your nerves are fried. You decide to make camp in a dry alcove nearby. A flat stone outcrop provides decent cover. You strip off your damp cloak, feed your horse a handful of dates, and gnaw on dried yam. Not exactly a feast, but your stomach stops complaining. As you settle against your saddlebag, your mind drifts again to that merchant scout. He's ahead of you now, but you're off map. You've bought time. The stars blink into place overhead. You remember something your old relay mentor once said while patching a torn scroll case. It's not about speed. It's about getting there in one piece. And tonight, you still are. You close your eyes, letting the fireflies blink lazily around you. One settles on your boot, pulses twice, then flutters off. Somewhere out there, someone's waiting for the message you carry. They won't know the lengths you went to. But that's the job. You fade into sleep, satchel under your arm, like a pillow of secrets. Morning sneaks in like a cat, soft and quiet, only giving itself away when a shaft of sunlight stabs directly into your eye. You blink, stretch, and immediately regret it. Your back crackles like an old floorboard. Your fingers are stiff. Your horse is still asleep, one ear twitching. For one precious moment, it almost feels like a camping trip. And then you remember black wax scroll, gold wax scroll, Mongol scout, whispering trees that may or may not want your soul. Right. Time to get moving. You pack up fast, chewing on a hardened sesame cake that could double as a roof tile. You check the scrolls. They're fine, untouched, still radiating that particular pressure that comes from carrying empire-level secrets through suspiciously quiet forests. The trail ahead curves downward now, following an old riverbed toward a town called Mulo. It's small but important, home to a relay station with a direct connection to a military outpost. If you reach it, the gold wax scroll gets passed on to an armored rider who specializes in speed over courtesy. The black wax scroll? That one might go into a locked vault and never see daylight again. As you ride, the air shifts, warmer, drier. Birds return to the soundscape, mostly swallows and sparrows, bickering like gossipy aunts. A cloud of dust rises in the distance, carried on a breeze. Your instincts twitch. A caravan. You slow, watching as a group of traders rounds the bend. 6 carts, 2 oxen, 1 extremely bored lute player perched on a crate. You nod in greeting. The lead merchant, a man with a beard long enough to braid into self-defense weapons, returns the gesture. "Courier?" he asks, glancing at your seal. "Urgent," you reply. He raises an eyebrow. "Gold wax urgent?" You freeze. He smiles. "Relax. I used to run dispatch before I grew this beard and lost the need for adrenaline." You allow a slight smile. "Mulot close?" "About half a lie. But take the lower fork. The main road's out, washed by the rains last week." You thank him and split off, trusting the tip. Mulot emerges like a painting in motion. Low clay buildings with turquoise tile roofs. The distant clatter of pans from a morning noodle stall. A child chasing a rooster across a square. The relay station sits near the edge, its banner hanging still in the soft air. You dismount and hand your horse to the stable boy, who is about 12 and definitely chewing something that should not be chewed. Inside, the station is buzzing, riders coming and going, scroll tubes being loaded into saddle packs, an older clerk asleep atop a ledger the size of a small canoe. You approach the duty officer, a stern woman with a face like old bronze and arms that could bench press a yak. "Courier, long route," you say, presenting your seal. She squints at you, then the satchel. "You're the one from Luozhou?" "Yes." She whistles. "They said you might be dead." "Not yet," you reply. She gestures toward a secure chamber. Scrolls. You enter alone, lay the black wax scroll on the velvet tray. The gold wax stays in your hand. "Military courier assigned?" you ask. She nods. "Waiting now. You'll escort it to the next post, then return to Luozhou for debrief." You frown. "Why not send it direct from here?" Her expression doesn't change. "Orders." "Of course it's orders. Everything is orders." A tall man enters. Military courier, clearly. Dressed in reinforced riding gear. Sword on one hip, emergency seal on the other. He offers you a nod that could mean good morning or don't die. You ride together. The path from Mulot to the provincial garrison cuts through farmland and broken forest. It's quiet again, but not in the eerie, whispering way. More like the land itself is holding its breath. The courier beside you doesn't speak much. When he does, it's in short bursts. How many scrolls he's carried this month? 12. How many times he's been shot at? 3. And how he once outran a pack of wolves by jumping into a river and floating downstream with the scroll in his teeth. You like him immediately. "Ever carry gold wax?" you ask. He nods. "Once." "What was it?" He grins. "If I told you, we'd both be executed. One of us, slowly." You ride faster after that, partly from paranoia, partly from the sense that something is brewing. Not just the scout, or the detour, or the whispering trees. There's been a change in the air for days now, like the Empire is exhaling just before something huge. You reach the garrison before sundown, a squat fortress built of dark stone, bristling with guards and the low murmur of military calm. No yelling, no chaos, just that tight, efficient hum of a place built to endure sieges and dish out discipline. You hand over the scroll, sign 3 ledgers, and receive a clay token indicating temporary rest status. You're offered a bunk, some dried pork, and a surprisingly fluffy pillow. But sleep doesn't come easily, because your next assignment isn't rest. The garrison clerk hands you a fresh scroll in the morning. Red wax, medium security, destination Xiangzhou. A different direction entirely. "New orders?" you ask. The clerk nods. Routes are shifting. Northern perimeter tightening. You're fast. We need fast. You sigh. Fast you can do. Before you leave, the military courier from yesterday finds you in the stables. Hey, he says, be careful in Shangzhou. Why? He shrugs. People there talk too much, but the land listens. Cryptic, comforting. You ride out under gray clouds, another scroll in your pack, the smell of coming rain thick in your nostrils. Tang couriers didn't just relay messages, they read the pulse of an empire. Every detour, every seal, every whisper in the trees, they all pointed to a system that functioned, not in spite of chaos, but because it could dance with it. And you're part of the dance. The tempo just picked up. The first hour out of the garrison feels like floating, not because the road is smooth. It's not. It's actually aggressively bumpy. But because your brain is still trying to catch up with everything. New route, new scroll, new whispers of things shifting at the northern edge of the empire. You know that rhythm by now. It's the same rhythm you get before a storm. The animals start acting weird. People start avoiding eye contact. And everyone pretends the sky isn't growing darker by the hour. The red wax scroll rides tight against your ribs, secured in the side sling pocket meant for exactly this kind of medium priority, but absolutely don't drop it kind of job. You don't know what's in it, of course, but the seal looks like the one used by the Provincial Military Council, which usually means repositioning troops, or we've noticed a disturbing pattern and would like someone else to worry about it. The path to Shangzhou isn't technically long, but it's riddled with forks, abandoned rest stations, and one bridge that has been out of service since the last minor rebellion 6 years ago. They fixed the rebellion faster than the infrastructure, naturally. Still, this stretch gives you something you haven't had in days, time to think. You remember when you first became a courier, not the orientation scrolls or the endurance tests, or even the charming ceremony where someone from the Ministry of Logistics tried to pin your rank upside down. No, you remember your first solo route. You got lost, twice, ate spoiled duck, got bitten by something. It might have been a squirrel. And then, on the final stretch, your satchel got soaked in a flash downpour and bled red ink all over your tunic. You cried, just a little, then delivered the scroll anyway. The recipient had grunted, cracked the wax, read it silently, then muttered, "Should have sent this with a bird." You think about that man now, wonder if he's still in service, or if some bird finally replaced him. You pass through a bamboo grove where the light filters in green and flickery, like the world's trying to send you a coded message. The air is cooler here, clean. Your horse seems to like it. She perks up, ears twitching at every rustle. You hum softly, some half-remembered tavern tune, mostly to stay awake. It works. And then you reach something unexpected, a checkpoint, just sitting there. Not a major one. No flags, no guards in formation, just a single uniformed officer, a canvas tent, and a low fire burning in a makeshift brazier. He holds up a hand as you approach. "Courier?" he asks. You nod. Xiangzhou route. Seal? You show him the red wax. He squints, nods again, then gestures to a small wooden box. Inspection protocol. Place the scroll inside. You hesitate. It's not standard at all. I thought red wax only went through direct handoff, you say carefully. New directive from Shangzhou's own relay hub, he replies. And there it is, that little flicker in your chest, the thing that says something's off. So you play dumb. Smile a bit. Mind if I verify that with Central? You say, reaching for your travel slate, a thin bamboo board etched with courier codes. The man's hand moves to his belt. You don't wait. You whip the reins and lurch forward, your horse lunging into motion just as the fake officer shouts and lunges. Something whistles past your ear. A dart? Arrow? You don't look. Trees blur. The trail splits and rejoins like a braided rope. You remember a side path up ahead, a courier bypass for winter floods. It's narrow and stupidly steep, but it curves behind a ridge and takes you straight to Shangzhou's south gate. You find it. Your horse knows what you want before you do. She pivots and charges, hooves striking sparks on hidden rock. Behind you, there's shouting, but it fades. 10 minutes later, you're on open land again, and Shangzhou finally comes into view. It sprawls below you like a dropped handful of jade tiles, walls snaking around the base of a ridge, towers like dark fingers pointing at the sky. You smell firewood, millet cakes, and something suspiciously fermented. And, most importantly, you spot the red and black Tang relay banner flying over the southern tower. You've made it. You approach the gates with every fiber of your body screaming for sleep. A gate officer steps out, sees your seal, and waves you through with the kind of look that says, "We've been expecting you," which is either comforting or extremely not. The relay station here is bigger than most, clearly a regional hub. Inside, everything hums. Clerks, messengers, riders in mid-argument about route times. You hand over the scroll to a lieutenant with too many rings and not enough patience. He signs your log sheet, stamps your seal, and tells you, no rest. You're being redirected. You blink. Already? He nods. New priority seal, gold wax. Goes south. Of course it does. Of course it does. You barely have time to refill your water gourd when they hand you the scroll. This one has a new mark on it. Beside the golden wax is a thin smear of black lacquer. Not official protocol, not military code, but you've seen it once before. Emergency War Communique. It means someone in the field wrote a scroll so urgent they didn't have time to file it through proper channels. They sealed it by hand with whatever wax and lacquer they had and sent it flying on the fastest route to a decision maker. It means the northern border has cracked, or is about to, and now it's your job to carry that crack south into the empire's heart. No pressure. As you step back outside, scroll tucked under your cloak like a newborn, the wind shifts again. Dust in the air. Storm tension. You glance at the sun, already tipping past its zenith. You sigh. South it is, you whisper to your horse. She doesn't look thrilled, but she doesn't argue. You mount up, press your heels lightly, and head out once more. Because this is what Tang couriers did better than anyone. Even the Mongols, even the Persians, even those smug little Roman engineers with their straight roads and marble mile markers. They didn't just deliver messages. They kept the empire breathing. And as long as you're riding, it still is. The officer doesn't even ask what's in the scroll. He simply motions to a younger courier and mutters, "Prepare a fresh horse, double the rations." Then to you, with a grave nod, "Ride direct to Guangzhou. No stops." You want to ask what he suspects, but your throat is dry. Instead, you sip from the barley flask they offer you, salty and warm, and climb back into the saddle. It's another 4 days' ride south. And those 4 days, they blur. Sleep becomes a rumor. The sun rises and sets like a slow blink. Forest becomes wetland, then hills studded with banyan trees. You pass village after village where no one seems to know what's coming. Children play with spinning tops made of lacquered wood, and fishmongers argue about crabs. You're carrying something that might shift the fates of all these people, and they're just buying scallions and sandals. Like nothing's wrong. It's maddening and oddly comforting. One night, rain catches you. Not a drizzle. No, this is a proper Tang Dynasty deluge. The kind that drenches you so fast, your ancestors feel it. The road turns to oatmeal under your horse's hooves. You shelter in a crumbling way station with half a roof and 3 frogs who stare like judges. You think of that gold lacquer, the urgency behind it, and a creeping worry arrives. What if the scroll is outdated? What if, by the time you deliver it, everything's already changed? Historians still debate whether this kind of lag between dispatch and delivery ever triggered irreversible military blunders. Some argue it did, quietly, buried under redacted records. Others believe the Tang's speed was so superior, even the Mongols later studied their roots. But you don't have time to worry about that now. Because after 4 days, Guangzhou rises ahead of you like a stone lotus, massive, fortified, busy even at dawn. You gallop past a merchant caravan, jump a sleeping pig, and barrel into the courier compound at full tilt. The receiving officer squints at your horse, mud-caked, wheezing, and at you, more soaked than soup. You hand him the scroll. Gold, lacquered. He opens it carefully, reads, blinks once, then calls out, "Alert the harbor, seal gate 3, tell Admiral Wu, situation green." No reaction, no celebration, just that. You slump to the stone floor, your legs shaking. Mission complete. Stop! You sleep for 16 hours. When you wake, someone's left you steamed buns and a dry blanket. They don't tell you what was in the scroll, but the next day, a merchant ship is turned around at port, and you hear whispers of a pirate clan diverted at the last minute, ambushed in a cove, thanks to an anonymous tip. Was it your message? Probably, but then again, maybe not. You leave Guangzhou 2 days later, the sea air still clinging to your clothes, salt curling the edges of your travel pass. The city was kind to you in small ways. Steamed buns left on your bunk, a dry pair of socks no one claimed, even a clean tunic from a retired courier who winked and said, "Use it before the moths do." You don't get to stay long, though. The Tang system never lets you rest too much, not when you've proven yourself gold lacquer worthy. That sort of delivery gets noticed, and when it gets noticed, you get moved. Now you're being reassigned. Not demoted, don't worry, more like laterally launched. You've been called inland again, to Chang'an, the capital, the beating heart, the bureaucratic beast with more scrolls than citizens. And getting there? It means retracing part of the same path you took weeks ago. Except this time, you'll be measuring it not in li, but in absurd expectations. See? Now they expect you to do it faster. The Tang loved their numbers. They knew how long a route should take under optimal conditions. That's why they issued those time-stamped copper tokens you had to hand over at each relay, so they could track if you were early, late, or suspiciously fast. And if you were too slow, well, a pay cut was the nice outcome. Historians still argue whether some couriers faked token drops by bribing relay clerks. A few suggest an underground network existed for ghost timing routes, letting slower riders appear punctual. But there's no hard proof, just gaps in old logs and a few mysteriously wealthy minor clerks. Anyway, you don't cheat. You ride. And oh, what a ride! The inland route is part pilgrimage, part punishment. There's the stretch where the fog rolls in so thick you can't see your own horse's ears. There's the bridge made of hanging ropes and questionable optimism. There's even a portion where monkeys throw pine cones at you, not out of hostility, but sheer boredom. One hits your shoulder. It hurts more than your pride. Still, you make good time. You pass familiar stations, Hengchuan, Qiangzhou, though now you're not delivering anything urgent. You're just a courier on transfer, an empty saddlebag, and a stamped scroll of reassignment. Yet people still stop what they're doing when they see you ride in. The gold lacquer changed you. You can feel it. So can they. One innkeeper you remember from weeks ago squints at you and says, "Weren't you the one riding in the storm?" You nod. He doesn't charge you for tea. You arrive at Chang'an at dusk. Not the gentle, poetic kind of dusk. This is a smog-laced, bell-chiming, incense-drenched descent into controlled chaos. The walls of the city rise up in silhouette, massive and precise, each gate bustling with exam scholars, rice traders, street performers, and a few very tired ducks. Chang'an is not just a capital, it's the empire's brain. Everything flows into it. Messages, taxes, soldiers, silk, scandal. And here you are, dismounting your sore-legged horse in front of the Ministry of Communications, wondering if this is the end of the road or just another detour. You report in. The clerk who takes your scroll wears spectacles so round and thick they could double as steamed buns. He barely looks up. Name? You give it. He flips a page, scribbles something, then frowns. You're him? You blink. Me? He nods slowly. The lacquered scroll. The pirate warning. You're him. You nod again, cautiously. He sets his brush down, stands, bows. Thank you. That's all he says. But in a city where most people won't even thank you for not running them over with a cart, it feels like a coronation. They put you up in an official dormitory that smells like sesame oil and bureaucracy. You have your own room now, with a window that looks out over a side street where kids chase each other with wooden swords, and someone's always burning tofu by accident. You're not given any deliveries for a full week. Instead, you're asked to train. This is new. You're assigned 2 apprentices. One is too eager, the other too tired. One drops his scroll trying to impress you. The other forgets hers entirely. But they listen, and that feels different. You're not used to being the one who knows things. You teach them about wind patterns, how to gauge the weight of a storm just by the way birds behave. You teach them the back ways into relay posts that don't appear on the official maps. You teach them to trust their gut, but also their horse, because the gut will lie, and the horse will never lie about mudslides. They soak it up. One night, the tired one asks you if it ever gets easier. You think for a long time before answering. Then you say, no, but it gets less surprising. She nods like that makes perfect sense. And it does. You're dreaming of mountains when the knock comes. It's early, before the bells, before the hawkers, before the sun. A courier's hour. The knock is soft but sharp, the kind made by someone who knows exactly how to wake another courier without startling them into punching a wall. You sit up, stretch, groan. You open the door to find a junior clerk standing there, dressed far too neatly for this hour. He holds a lacquered box. "This is for you," he says. You blink. "Is this a mistake?" "No mistake," he replies, placing it carefully in your hands. "It's from the court of surveillance." "Ah, that's not ominous at all." You open the box slowly. Inside is a scroll, not golden, not even sealed, just thick, hand-brushed paper with elegant characters. Your eyes scan it. You're being assigned a shadow route. It's an honor and a test. Shadow routes are the ghost veins of the empire, unmapped, confidential, and rarely spoken of. You don't deliver to an official. You deliver past officials. No relay stations, no copper tokens, no rest. The scroll has a name and a place. A senior military advisor in Luoyang. And a message labeled simply, "Private, eyes only." This isn't just a delivery. It's a trust fall with consequences. So naturally, you accept. You leave at dusk to avoid attention. Your horse has been swapped for a new one. Sleek, fast, alert. The kind of beast bred in secret stables. The kind that doesn't spook when wolves howl or crosswinds wail. You name her Arrowhead because her ears always point forward. The route is a labyrinth. You follow mountain ridges with no trails. You ford rivers without bridges. You spend one day walking after Arrowhead loses her footing and throws a shoe. You find a farrier in a fishing village who doesn't ask questions, but does charge in dried shrimp. Luoyang takes 6 days. 6 days without rest stops, way stations, or warm meals. 6 days of rain, wind, and once, briefly, a fire that burns down a portion of the forest just north of the river bend. You ride through the ash and keep going. The city appears like a hallucination. Red roofs, tall gates, lanterns like falling stars. You don't enter through the front. You circle, as instructed, to a western villa marked with nothing but a gray banner. An old woman opens the gate, says nothing, just points. You follow the path to a side building. The advisor is there, waiting. Dressed plainly, without insignia, his beard is neatly oiled, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. He takes the scroll, reads it, frowns. Then, just before rolling it up, he nods once. "You delivered it yourself," he says, not as a question. You nod back. "Thanks." "You weren't followed?" You shake your head. He relaxes. "Good." And that's it. No ceremony, no thanks, just a slight lift of his chin, enough to say you did well, but not enough to compromise whatever secret just passed through your hands. You leave Luoyang at dawn. No assignment waits for you this time. You ride with the strange freedom of someone who has fulfilled their duty so thoroughly that no one quite knows what to do with them afterward. It's disorienting, comforting, terrifying. You pass fields of barley, swamps with croaking frogs. You sleep beside an old stone lion half swallowed by ivy. Once, you think you see a tiger in the distance, but it's probably a large dog with attitude issues. Period. By the time you return to Chang'an, weeks have passed. No one meets you at the gate. No scrolls await. Just your room, the window, and the kids still sword fighting below. You spend your first day back washing your clothes and checking Arrowhead's hooves. The second day, you sit under a ginkgo tree with a scroll of blank paper, unsure whether to write a letter or start your memoir. On the third day, a clerk visits again, but this time he's not carrying a scroll. Just a message. You're being reassigned, he says. You sigh. Of course. Where to now? He shrugs. No idea. The message just said, wherever they're needed most. You smile. That's courier speak for anywhere and everywhere, forever. So you pack your bag. Again. You tie your tunic. Again. You whisper something to Arrowhead, and she flicks her ears in agreement. Again. Because the road never ends for people like you. Not really. Not in this dynasty. Not while the empire pulses and breathes and scribbles and fights and loves and schemes. You aren't just a postman anymore. You're part of the nervous system of the Tang. The empire stretches from desert to sea, from horse whisperers in the west to monks brewing tea on frozen mountain passes. And all of them, every one of them, still depends on that knock in the morning, that clatter of hooves, that scroll delivered just in time. So off you go, not for the glory, not for the pay, not even for the honor. You go because you can't not go. Because there are still messages out there that need to be carried, quietly, quickly, and without fail. And you were born to carry them. You ride on through the twilight, each hoofbeat falling softer, quieter, like distant drums in a velvet fog. The wind brushes your cheeks in a hush, almost as if the sky is whispering, "You've done enough for now." The road behind you fades into the dust, swallowed gently by memory. The scrolls are all delivered. The relay stations sleep. The empire exhales. And you're no longer just a courier racing the sun. You're part of something older, something sacred, a thread in a massive tapestry, woven across mountains and rivers, connecting hearts and histories with ink and resolve. The horse beneath you slows to a trot. The lanterns of a nearby village flicker like fireflies in the distance. You feel the weight of your saddle ease. Your body softens. You let your eyes drift closed for a moment too long, and the world around you becomes less road and more dream. There's nothing left to rush. Not tonight. You've run through storms, outpaced pirates, crossed continents on borrowed time, and somehow, against all odds, delivered what needed to be delivered. You've survived, and not just survived, you've thrived. So now, let your breathing slow. Let the hum of imaginary cicadas lull you deeper. Picture the stars over Chang'an, scattered like powdered jade, shimmering above that distant city you once rode into at dusk. It's quiet now, and you've earned the quiet. So sink into it, drift with it. Let the dream carry you farther than any horse ever could. You're home, you're safe, you're free.